Hello, everyone. We are here in Hacking Education, the podcast to add value, ideas, stories, and friends to hack the educational system around the world. So, we are here with a close friend, Carolyn Percifield, a friend of mine, a friend of a beautiful project we have been talking about named Interchange Project. We are here in Purdue University in West Lafayette, Indiana, to share the story of a leader, of a person in charge of a lot of teams to enhance a wider vision of education, higher education mostly, and the connection between university, industry, and obviously some communities and countries. Caroline, thank you for being here with us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Fun.
Yes, I know it's fun and will be fun.
It will be fun.
Also, we have Mario Ramirez, company builder, well-seasoned engineer from Colombia, to talk about this connection between academy and industry. So let's jump into the who is Carolyn Percifield and what kind of role you play here in Purdue during your time here in the university.
Okay, well, without getting into too much detail, I think I have to emphasize that my college background was a small liberal arts school.
Liberal
Grew up
arts.
in Massachusetts, went to school in the Midwest, uh, ended up in West Lafayette, and working for Purdue University for 26 years. So, sometimes serendipity makes your life. And so I did many different jobs in those 26 years, corporate relations, alumni relations, fundraising, and the last roughly half of that time was strategic planning,
Strategic planning.
which was like a gift to be able to do that. And so I did that for two deans and part of a third. And, it gave me the opportunity I was given a lot of leeway. I mean, freedom to sort of define what that meant, and to, with two different deans, sort of explore how they wanted to work with the faculty and with alumni and others to develop their vision for the future of the college, and then sort of be in assistance to keeping that moving forward, even though time means sometimes what you thought. You need to adjust, course adjustments. So anyway, it was an amazing and wonderful career, and one of the great things that happened during it is I had the opportunity, because of one of our very successful and influential alumni who was the chairman of our advisory councils at the time, I actually got to explore pretty much all of Latin America. And in that process,
The name of that guy is Juan
Juan
Ernesto
Ernesto
Devedut. Hello,
Yeah.
Juan Ernesto. For sure, you will see this.
with Kimberly Clark for
Yeah.
his career, and he was he was president of all the Latin American operations
Okay.
at the time when I met him. I had asked him to join our advisory council.
Let me ask you something basic. What is strategic planning in one university, in an academy? What's mean that? How is your
I think
definition? A short definition.
Strategic planning is strategic planning. It doesn't
Everywhere.
matter the context,
Okay.
right? And there's many, many, many ways to do it.
Okay.
And I had actually studied strategy as a component of my master's program, just because I always gravitated in that direction, no matter when I served on nonprofits. I always wanted to understand what the long view was and not just worry about short-term matters. You have to do both.
Maintain the long-term view, but also
You
doing.
need a long-term view.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? You can't just be focused on the short term. You've got to have a long-term view, but you can't be 100% married to the long-term view. You've got to be able to understand that you have to make course corrections because things happen,
Of course.
right? And So, that was just in my DNA.
So
And
you
so
did that for engineering or
oh, I did it for every organization I was ever involved in.
okay.
But I actually then studied it when I was in my master's program. And it just became a part of sort of what I did, and then it was formalized. Like one of my deans said, yeah, you just need to be the director of strategic planning and make sure that sort of help lead us through. We were going to go through a major exercise to involve as many of our faculty as could be, instead of just having it at the executive level, which is usually how it happens. And we did a pretty good job of it, I would like to say.
For sure.
Because the faculty were, I would say, somewhat astonished that I would go to them, to their offices, and I didn't introduce a specific topic. I said it was their time to just say whatever was on their mind, good, bad, ugly, new, different. And, they were pretty astonished. And I didn't get to everybody, but I got to every school and department, and I interviewed all of the heads of the schools, all of them. And I also made it a point to interview as many, the different classifications of students, undergrads, graduate students, PhD. I interviewed, junior, midterm faculty, senior
Seniors.
faculty. I really tried to get through the stratification of how and who we were and
Okay.
get perspectives. And, I think it was the first time that, all sort of as a collective, people felt involved in the future directions of the college. And, but I have to thank Leah Jameson, who was my boss at the time, my dean, because she gave me great latitude to do that.
And margin
And
to
actually
act.
money to support
Great.
activities to bring people together. Some were bigger forums, some were individual office visits. Did some international travel to try to interact with international alumni, because we have students from, when I was here, I think it was 125 countries.
No.
Well, how do you just do it from a U.S. perspective or just from a faculty perspective? So she let me roam the world, and that's how I got to Columbia.
Yeah.
And
Great.
and it, Columbia and me just, fell in love. So, I made friends and started going back there. And
You have a lot of friends there, fans that for sure will see this video
yeah,
and feel so proud of you and
Yeah.
proud of this link with Colombia. Let me ask you something, because I know Mario want to ask something else about the industry, but I was thinking, what kind of skills, what kind of skills you must have to think strategically and to be a director of the planning strategy. So, in your case, what do you highlight something?
I'm just going to
Just not
say,
academic things, but the
no,
personal thing.
you can study strategy, which I did, but there's nothing in that study that tells you what skills you need. I just think that's, for me, it's just in my DNA. But I think if I were to try to understand about myself, I think you have to be curious. It's got to be a basic thing: inquisitiveness, curiosity, sort of understanding what makes things tick. You know, a
Connect dots,
desire,
things.
yeah, connecting dots. If this is the way things are, how can they be better? What does the future look like, and how do you not run into it and have a fatal crash instead of, being able to have an adaptive path? I don't know. I guess that's the way I think about that. And so I think if you're a very sort of rigid, this is the pathway and that's what I've designed, and you have some resistance to course correct, right? Or if you have a resistance to change, and there are people like that, right? And there's roles for people like that, right? Because we also need some level of sustainability and continuity, right? So it's not that it's wrong, but you also need people who sort of maybe, well, or maybe even get impatient with the status quo and sort of just like a little bit of messiness, you know? And because what's on the other side hopefully is excitingly good. Yeah.
So I wanted to see a little bit, or to talk a little bit about industry and the connection with institution. But now, um, based on your experience, are there any couple of questions that you always ask either the students or the executive teams, or you every time you were observant enough to ask different questions to the people?
Well, I'm going to back up a second
Okay.
because my one of my roles, because I had different titles over 26 years, I was the director of corporate relations. And so I have a very tight relationship with how universities and corporations interact and the motivation.
Okay.
So, you know, there's several reasons. I would say the top reason is access to students. They want to hire the students who are graduating from Purdue.
Okay.
So it's in their best interest to do things in relationship with the university to be present with students, to be on campus, to, you know, so students understand who they are as a company.
Okay.
And, you know, I think Purdue is, you also have to know a little bit about Purdue. It is known worldwide. We have students from all over the world, through 130 something countries or some crazy number like that. And and we have alumni, of course, that scatter back across the globe. And so I just think that what companies want is to have access to this great body of talent,
Okay.
first and foremost the students, and secondarily, when they also have research interests, access to the professors.
Okay. So the companies do want their students, the research, and the curation of the students or the education of the students that they get at Purdue. Now, how important is company institution relationship?
Well, again, I can speak for Purdue, and I know like Georgia Tech and others are very similar, very large universities, especially those with technical resource, scholars. They're going to be very close with industry because they've got to not just be at the forefront of technology. They also have to be at the current. You know what I mean? We need both, and the companies need both.
Because
They need to know how to manage through the current, but they also need to know what's coming along.
because for companies, and I'm speaking for myself, it's difficult to understand that you have needs, but at the same time that there is some support for both government and institutions. Okay, and so after all these visits, I realized that institutions can definitely help showing you the future path, but at the same time also helping you to collect some information to where the government is needing the companies to do. So can you elaborate a little bit on that connection between also government, you know, grants, helps, and other type of resources that they can share with the small and medium-sized companies?
Well, that's not my sweet spot, but because Purdue's pretty unique. We have people who do, uh, you know, a lot of the research. When you think of universities, you think of basic research. They're like way before it's ever going to be commercialized, way before. But you need this basic research. But I think one of the things that Purdue does extremely well is they sort of have research across the continuum to that way that you take things that have been discovered and they've been developed, and then because they keep trying them in practice or in practical situations, right, as well as improving the technology. So we have people that do work all along that spectrum. It's sort of I don't know if I'm saying making a bell curve, but I don't actually know if it's a bell curve.
Yeah, everything is a normal distribution. Is good.
Yeah, exactly. But we have a lot of laboratories that are very esoteric and very focused on very high-level research. But we also have laboratories that are very practical, like Herrick Labs is run by mechanical engineers, but it's multidisciplinary, but is very practical on acoustics and things like that. Okay. So that we have that spectrum of how discoveries are made usable.
Okay.
Yeah.
The practicality of the discovery. Do you think that most of the corporate relationships that you did were larger companies, or you had some small and medium-sized companies on these relationships?
Yeah, it was the spectrum. We did have a huge, probably most of the Fortune 500 came here to recruit or do research, but we're also a state university, Indiana, so that brought many, many, many different size companies here. So you might have, I can't think of one right off the top of my head, but there's a company in southern Indiana that it's not huge, but it's fairly well known and does national business. But but they hire a ton of Purdue interns. Okay. So most of the engineering students at some point in their academic career go into industry and either work for a summer, multiple summers, or they did a co-op where they're committed to a company for their career and they increase their areas of responsibility across that career. Usually they go work for that company, but they're not contracted to have to. There's still free will and they can go through the interview process. When there's a student-run job fair here, and 10,000 students will interact with probably 300 or more companies across 2 or 3 days. Okay. And it's pretty amazing. And that particular, there's a huge employment office that helps students, but this is a unique thing where it's student-driven, student-directed, student-run, and honestly, the companies love it. They come here in droves, and they're out there trying to get those students, and there'll be students lined up for an hour with, their resumes ready and their 10-second speech. Seriously, to get to an actual interview. All they want is their name to go on the list, so they have an actual interview.
And we also had a conversation outside this podcast where we talked about a little bit of the international research. Mm-hmm. There's sometimes the university is involved with international research that can be not only beneficial to an international country, but across the board for many of the grains or any of the agricultural products that can be distributed all throughout the world. How was your involvement and your with international, in this case Colombia, or any other international country? How do you think that can help companies in that country as well as companies in the U.S.?
Well, again, I wasn't on the research side, but we have a very famous agronomist who invented a product that I think it was a type of bag that wouldn't let weevils in, but I don't know if I'm remembering that correctly. It might have been a coating. And he changed, it changed,
the industry
this isn't fair because I don't have enough recollection of what the innovation was and the total impact, so I really can't speak to all of that. But it did. I mean, it was a fundamental, huge change that made a difference, especially in I would say, I don't know, smaller economies
Yeah, because
or more agrarian.
we were
economies.
walking towards the engineering department and we saw all these patents that were here. So
Yeah.
maybe some companies can also use those technologies to keep developing themselves.
Well, I mean, our faculty members are amazing, and there are things that lead to patents. And I mean, you'll see patents lined up in many buildings. If you go over to the Burke Center, there's lots of patents there because there's lots of multidisciplinary research, and so that is. Um, I'm not going to. I think of it as sort of a newer thing. You know, it used to be researchers would tend to be solos or a small group, and Purdue really, you know, made it a priority to create standalone spaces that didn't belong to a particular department, so that people from any department who had an interest maybe in some topic, biotechnology, they didn't have to be in a biotechnology department or biomedical department. It could be anybody who had something to contribute, and so they made it very easy for faculty to come together and provide them with multidisciplinary space, unique equipment that, you know, might be too expensive for them to even acquire, even with grants and things. Yeah, well, I just think Purdue has been really leading edge in a lot of ways in terms of, and you know, how research and education impact each other.
Okay.
Well, you know, some of that, I feel like some of that was always in their DNA. They always had a relationship with industry.
From the beginning? From the beginning of
I
the
think so. It was
because the land
whole
grant?
university was founded by two local entrepreneurs. I think they gave the land, something like that, that the university is on. I mean, there was a land grant, yes.
was the
We're a
name
land
of the
grant university,
Purdue?
so there was
Okay.
land set aside, but that didn't provide money to build the university.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a group of local businessmen
Yeah.
at the time, in the 1800s, who said, "Well, we got the land. Now we got to build a university." And you know, there were certain stipulations about the type of university. Land grant means mechanical arts, agricultural arts,
agriculture.
and military arts.
All 31.
Yeah,
Okay.
so ROTC, we have a strong ROTC. We have a very strong world-class agriculture school and world-class engineering school. Those were the basics
Wow.
when it was first founded in the late 1800s, thanks to Abraham Lincoln.
Mm-hmm. I would like to jump to the idea of this entrepreneurial spirit here in the whole campus and the whole. I think all the programs have something related to entrepreneurial or entrepreneurship programs here. And I remember my first time with this word, sciencepreneur, was here. And you
Don't
mentioned
know if I've ever heard that word.
you mentioned that the faculty are really smart and people, but I remember you have here like a forge, like an incubator, but it's not like carrying a baby, but it's different the approach. I remember you told me a bit more about that. Could you highlight a bit about this tradition of Purdue tradition to not just connect the industry, but also create companies or create a spin-off or kind of this entrepreneurial ventures?
Well, I don't know if I can give you a completely accurate and comprehensible version of that. My recollection, for instance, of how Discovery Park happened,
Discovery Park.
which is independently owned by Purdue Research Foundation, so it is not a Purdue University property, but it is a kissing cousin. Right? But there was a group of local entrepreneurs, and they felt that having something that was sort of a practical way to move research into reality needed to exist. And I remember one of them was Pritzker, Alan Pritzker. I think he actually taught here, maybe in industrial engineering. Don't remember that for sure. Anyway, I've forgotten all the names, but interesting group, and they just, got around coffee a bunch of times and decided that we needed that sort of a setup, and bought land and built a building to begin with. And I think they maybe, I'm trying to remember how they did it at first. They might have maybe leased space for professors to do some stuff they weren't able to do on campus. That part I can't remember.
Okay.
But there was some relationship with Purdue. It was independent but connected, and it just allowed the freedom to do some things that weren't necessarily possible at the time to do within the confines and restrictions of the Purdue University is a state university. It doesn't have state in the title, but it is the land grant university in the state of Indiana.
Okay.
So anyway, so I think that for whatever reason, the connection between faculty and industry occurred sort of organically
Okay.
a long time ago. I'm going to say it was probably in the late 60s. Yeah.
Okay. We started talking about this connection between Purdue University, and Colombia, a country. You were in these first conversations of this strategic plan to connect this university with Colombia. I want to know, and for sure the audience want to know, why Colombia? Why not, I don't know, Costa Rica, Mexico, or Brazil? Brazil is huge. Why Colombia? And I know you have friends, maybe they are watching this video, but in the real thing, what was the set of details or features that fit between Colombia and Purdue at that moment?
So we were in the midst of doing our strategic plan, and I was, I know the person and I remember the moment. I'm trying to remember where we were in the strategic plan. I think, so it was Arvin Rahman. He was a junior professor at the time, non-tenured. The current dean of engineering. And he was on one of my teams, and they were exploring. I can't remember their exact topic. Yeah. I remember who his partner was. He was the head of industrial engineering, a unique guy, and and Arvind is a mechanical engineer originating from India. The other guy was, I believe, originally from Israel, but I don't know if I'm remembering that correct. But anyway, a different region. And but they didn't choose their team partner. I did. I just tried to. I felt it was important that people, from different disciplines, different sort of hierarchy of the faculty and staff system needed to, it brought a richer train of thought. And so they were the ones that came up with this idea about why do we have these faculty, most of the relationships other than we're in the Big Ten conference, so we have a group of universities that we interact with. There's other organizations that bring you together at their national meetings and things. But, they were going, when you think about faculty, they have their interaction with you, this other faculty member, because of their research or maybe something else related to the academic mission. But those that might last an entire career. It might be temporal, but it's sort of centered around a person and not around, the entire university, and definitely not around an entire country, right? And so they started brainstorming, well, what if we, explored having multiple, instead of just going to this university once because, I've got a colleague there. What if we make relationships with entire ecosystems, right? The entire university, in a way that there's some kind of flow and, cross-pollination, that it outlasts any individual, right? Because institutions last, the individuals move on. And maybe it's not in our normal stomping ground, right? We know those types of longer-term relationships we probably sustain across the organizations we're closest to, so the Big Ten, for instance. And so anyway, so that was sort of the brainchild of Arvind and Shimon, and we're going, well, how do we explore that space? Interesting, but And Arvind was going, well, we do have somebody who loves Purdue, but also loves his country, a non-Native American citizen, U.S. citizen, and he can open up Latin America for us and help us understand then a region. Oh, this individual was a dear friend, Juan Ernesto Devedut, and he was formerly the CEO of Kimberly-Clark's Latin American operations. And and at the time, he was the chair of our College of Engineering Industrial Advisory Council, which I managed on behalf of the dean. And
I have a question about that.
Yeah.
At that time, did you have enough resources to support an initiative like that?
The dean had set aside a significant amount of funds to support the entire process of our strategic plan, and that included that it wasn't just the brainstorming and facilitating faculty members and staff and so on getting together on site, but to sort of build out that idea and see how it could be actualized.
But what about for the transportation back and forth?
That was all included in, there was I won't say it was 100% unrestricted, but she did not put boundary conditions on what that money could be spent on. I mean, she had right of refusal to sign the authorization form, but really, in reality, she was, let me sort of make that first level decision, but she, on bigger expenses, she had to make the final. So she paid for a lot of faculty to travel to Columbia to explore that space, to meet their counterparts at different universities. We opened up channels, and I think the recruiting of graduate students sort of grew. I think we started with about, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'm going to say somewhere between 30 or 40 graduate students, almost no undergrads, because Columbia has great undergraduate education. Is the Dean of Engineering, Leah, former Dean of Engineering, Leah Jameson.
So in the case where budget is not an issue, were there any other important challenges?
Maybe there were. I'm going to say it was probably, might have been a little bit more internal, of maybe some people internally were going, what's all that money being spent for to go there? But I don't remember. No, Leah just made that easy. And she was really supportive. We took her down to Columbia more than once, and So she had her own experiences there. She met some of the people in some of the institutions we had been visiting,
Yeah.
and we hosted some of those
The
up
band.
here.
You remember?
Oh yeah, well she didn't do
100
that, but the university decided to take. We have a marching band
Marching
at
band.
Purdue that's sort of world
Really well
renowned.
famous.
It is, and it's huge. I don't know, hundreds of students, and they took the entire marching band down to Medellin for the flower.
120 students in the flower fair
parade, yeah.
marching with instrument and the whole costume.
A
and
big,
that was-
ginormous bass drum that you have to pull on a pulley. And
we have videos of that. You must be
It's huge.
see
You
that.
got to go to the football game.
It was crazy.
But I mean that they had actually been to Columbia in the '60s under a different band director who actually lived in my neighborhood when he was alive, and so they there was a connection with Columbia from the 1960s when Purdue was taken down there many years ago.
Let's jump into the chapter, the interchange chapter, and this connection with those 49 kids. We came here to the camp, to your camp, and how you opened your arms and engage yourself with them as a family. You remember the first time? You remember the first cohort of those kids with a broken English, trying to I don't know, open.
I don't know. Those kids feel
mind.
like almost my babies, you know.
Yeah, I know.
Because they were the first.
Totally,
So,
totally. We have two
yeah.
of them here right now doing their PhD. Actually, yeah.
Yeah.
You remember the time?
Oh, I do. Yeah, it was incredibly special, and I, pretty much, neglected my work so I could spend time with them. And I usually ate one or two meals with them every day. Usually, I tried to, make sure I was with them during the week. And if I recall, Juan Ernesto, Davidu,
Yeah.
came while they were here and gave them gifts.
You did the fundraising for the first cohort, and I think for the many of those cohorts.
Yeah.
You talk with a lot of people. You share with them the not just this beautiful experience in Purdue or the academic thing, but also an open view of the world. I believe that something incredible when you see them during these 10 years. That 2 weeks here changed their life and the mindset, and they're sharing that new mindset with their own family. So the impact have been, amazing.
Well, to go back to how that happened, it took a village, right? I don't even remember how I connected the dots, but that program was the Gifted Education Research Institute summer camp program on campus for U.S. kids. I think they might have had a small international population, but I don't remember that for sure. But it was for kids who, sort of tested positive for genius. I'm serious.
Yeah.
And so it was a very specialized camp. And I don't know how we did it, but we convinced Marcia Gentry
Yeah.
that she should let
In our
these
hearts.
kids from Columbia, who she'd never met, who she knew nothing about, who grew up in very modest conditions,
Yeah.
educational ability unknown, to come be embedded in her summer camp. They didn't even speak English, as I recall. I think they had to
No.
have a crash course in English to try to at least get some basic language skills.
Yeah.
They didn't even necessarily have, appropriate clothing, I guess. And your former organization,
Rutan Corporation.
Rutene, they gave them each a duffel bag, a couple changes of clothes, money. I mean, you know what they gave them. I mean, it was a remarkable, sweet, generous gift by a lot of people. a lot of people and
A village,
organizations.
you mean?
It was a village, and somehow we got them all here, and I don't know. I just felt a responsibility to them, and I think I ate lunch with them every day,
Okay.
and probably, and I usually would go in the evening to play with them a little bit, and yeah, so yeah, we had a good time.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. Beautiful memories with a lot of people. Marsha Gentry, Carol Hamburger, Arvin Rahman, Juan Diego Velázquez. You know, a
Yeah.
list of names,
Yeah.
incredible people, kind people to open their mind and their hearts to invite those 49 students to be part of this family.
Yeah.
And you are like the auntie, the evil auntie,
I am the evil auntie, but evil auntie loves those kids.
the fun auntie,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, Caroline, thank you very much for this conversation. I've been enjoying a lot to spend this time with you and sharing them some memories and strategic ideas to enhance and change the educational system. Interchange, I think, is one of our hacks. Is the way that we understood we need to surround those students instead that they live and they're in the I don't know poor neighborhoods or some places to surround of people who cares about them and who trust about them. So interchange means a global family who cares and who knows and who trusts in the important link of love.
I think also the potential of all people.
Totally.
Money doesn't make potential.
Money doesn't make potential. Okay.
True.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carl.